let's do that. There we go. We are recording. So Vray animations for Rhino. I have a small element done real quickly. I believe this is element 11 of our set. No, it is not. It's element 7. My bad. But I just modeled out a small element. It's not even good. It's just, you can kind of walk on top of it, and there's going to be some sort of floaty thing. And the reason why I did it this way is just so that we have some sort of a dynamic thing going on within the element, so that I can animate more stuff. That's about it. Don't think that oh, you need to do this aesthetic. No, it's not necessary. This is just to have a playground to showcase more tools. And now I can't see my Grasshopper window anymore, which is fun. Let's try again. There we go. There's Grasshopper. I'll just show you, how to animate stuff in Grasshopper and later on render it out with Vray. So if you have at least a little bit newer version of Vray installed, not from 1980s, then you will have a tab in Grasshopper called Vray, right? So because right from, I believe it's from 2018, as you install Vray, it comes with a Grasshopper. Install Vray for Rhino, it comes with a Grasshopper plugin. Was it 18 or 19? I don't remember. And basically that node tab or plugin tab for Grasshopper contains a bunch of different sub-tabs, and I will cover most of them during this tutorial. But the main focus is going to be on creating animations that are being controlled by a single slider, right? By a single number between 0 and 1. I do have a little bit of, let's call it my notes, teacher's notes here if I get lost, because sometimes I just since I need to sometimes answer questions, in the chat and so on, I sometimes get lost, so I'll just use this if I forget something. So this node here, there is also a character, but don't mind the character. The character is just for the scale purposes. I just placed her here to just have some sort of a reference to the scale and to see whether or not, if she was walking up, would she bump her head on the spike and all of that jazz. Okay, so now let's start by defining what's going to be static and what's going to be dynamic, and referencing in elements from Rhino into Vray that we think should be dynamic, that we want to move, right? So I will start specifying, well, first of all of this, this main frame is going to be static, right? It's not going to move, so we don't care. We can have it in Rhino, so I'll just hide it straight up, right? That's not moving, we don't care about it for now. Later on we will care about it, but not for now. The character is also static, it's not gonna move, we hide her. And then we have a bunch of stuff. So let me start referencing it in, and I will just, all of this is polysurfaces, so I'll reference them in as a brep, right? So I just double click, type in brep, and I get an option to have a node for brep, create it like so. I right click on it, set one brep, and I will just choose whichever is first. Let's go for this. And I will immediately make a group. So I select my element, click the scroll wheel and choose at 12 o'clock, then I can choose to group. And I will right click on the group and then I can name it. And I will name it outer blade. Let's call it outer blade 1 because there's going to be 2 of them. This is the second one, right? So I kind of do the same thing. Brep right click, set one prep, group, outer blade 2. Okay, so we have these two done, and this is like I would suggest you do this as well. Every time when you reference something in, hide it in Rhino so that you don't, don't see two geometries at the same time. One that's Rhino is showing and the other one that's Grasshopper is showing. So I just hide them in Rhino. So those are my two outer blades. Then I have this ring here, so let me reference that one in as a B-rep. Come on, B-rep. Set one. There we go. Hide it. Group it. Ring. Then I have a bunch of these small blades which look like an onion. So let me reference them in as a B-rep or as multiple B-reps because it's more than one. So set multiple B-reps. Oh, why are you lagging? Why are you lagging? Hello? No. Okay, that worked out. For some reason it was lagging. Now Grasshopper is gone. Hello, come back, please. I'm doing a tutorial here. Come back. There we go. And I'll just group them and call them onion. Doesn't matter. Onion cage or whatever you want. And also I will hide them. Maybe it's easier to select them in the side view, like so. Hide. There we go. And what do we have left? We are left with some spheres and two like pillows in the top and the bottom. So those pillows are actually going to be static. I will hide them. I don't care about them. They're going to be in the same place, so whatever. But these spheres here, maybe this one is wait, let me hide the preview of these so that you can see better. I have a big sphere here in the center and then small spheres kind of going around it in a cross, three-dimensional cross. So let's call this, let's reference it in as a B-rep. Set one B-rep, group it, and call this big sphere. Disable preview and hide it. And then all of the small ones, I don't care. I'll just kind of reference them all into one component here. Set multiple B-reps. Constellate, no, let's just call it small spheres. There we go. And hide it as well. All right, so the boring part is done. We have all of this crap referenced in, right? I don't know why my computer is lagging, but whatever. So we will want to be able to move and rotate and scale all of this geometry. Well, maybe not move, but rotate and scale for sure. All of this geometry according to some sort of a single slider. So we move a slider and the whole thing just kind of rotates and then does its thing, you know, whatever. It can be movement, it can be rotation, doesn't matter. So we will have a number, right? Number, just an empty number component, and to that number component I'll just add a slider, let's say 0.5, and a bunch of numbers after, like the dot, so that it's a very accurate slider. So it will go between 0 and 1 with a lot of accuracy. I'll just connect it to the number. The reason why I connect the slider to the number is because we will be connecting to a lot of different components from the slider. So I want to be able to kind of switch the slider up with something else later on. So in doing it this way, I will not need to disconnect the slider from a lot of components and reconnect the new version of it later on. Rather, I will just be able to disconnect it from this single number component. So basically, this number component doesn't do anything. It's like a quick dispatch link, right? Okay, so we have that going on. And now let's start. Let's start with, maybe let's start with the big sphere, right? Because it's right in the middle. So let me hide everything else, and we have the big sphere. So what do I want to do with it? Well, for the big sphere, I imagine it's going to glow, right? And I want it to pulse, like become bigger, become smaller, become bigger, become smaller. So during the animation, it should pulse, right? So I'll be scaling it. Scale. And I'll be scaling it around a center point, around its center point. Actually, all of the geometry that we have referenced in is located around, is oriented around the center point of the sphere. It's right in the middle, right? So for the, my voice, oh no. So for the middle of the sphere, to get them, God damn it, just a second. Water good. Okay, so for the middle of the sphere, to get it, I can just measure the volume of the sphere, and it gives me the volume, yeah, but it also gives me the centroid, which I'm interested in, right? Because it's the center point, volumetric centroid of the sphere, right? And that's that, right? And then we have a factor. So for the factor, and I will hide everything except the scale node here. And for the factor, I will just create a slider between 0.1 ... and 2, right? So, okay, I probably should explain that part, right? If you want to create a slider, a number slider between two distinct values, the minimum value and the maximum value, the shortcut for doing it is just to write the first value. You know, you double click anywhere on the Grasshopper canvas and you type in 0.1. That's the minimum value of the slider. And then to create a maximum value, you type ... right? Type in ... and you type in the maximum value, which is, in my case, I want it to be 2. Like that. And now we have a slider, and then just hit enter. Now we have a slider between 0.1 and 2. And I connect it to the factor here. Like so. So now, as I move this value, I can see, you know, it scales up, scales down, scales up, scales down. Easy. The thing is that we want this slider right here, which goes between 0 and 1, to control the scale of the sphere, and we don't want it just to kind of scale up from small to big during the whole animation. We want it to pulsate, right? To scale up and down multiple times. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky than just having, you know, the slider right here. But at least now with this slider, I can check what's the actual minimum value that I want. And I think like 0.5 should be fine, and the maximum of 2 is actually okay. So somewhere between 0.5 and 2 should be, you know, that pulsating amplitude. All right, so how do you make things pulsate? Well, you do sinus, like a sinus wave, right? Because sinus is something that pulsates. So we will need to use a node that's called sine, compute the sine of a value, right? And that actually let me immediately connect a panel to the result of that node, just to show you. You don't need to do this, but this is just to show you what kind of output we get. And let me connect this slider, or rather the number output, to the value here. right? So technically sinus wave goes between -1 and 1. You know, the whole amplitude always jumps between -1 and 1. So if we give value 0 to sine x, if x equals 0, then sine x is going to equal 0, right? So that works. But then if we give it 1, for some reason it gives us 0.84, blah, 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 blah. It's not a clean number, but it should be clean, right? And then we remember from high school that it's not a number, it needs to be in radians, right? It's not like the clean values you get for sinus is from radians, not the full numbers. So in between the number node here and the sinus node here, we need a node that's called pi, right? So we connect the number node to the factor of pi, and the output we connect to the value, like that. And now it's 0 again, right? So now as I move the slider, let me move the panel right next to the slider so that you can see better. Now as I move the slider, right at the middle, it's going to be 1, right? And then at the start it's going to be 0, then it becomes 1, and then it becomes 0 again, right? So now we have a value that's changing from 0 to 1 to 0. And actually I can show you, we can already connect it to the factor. This is going to freak out immediately because you know, we're scaling something by 0. But as I move the slider, you know, the sphere increases and then decreases, right? And then increases and decreases, right? Throughout the whole, like, sliding motion. Okay, so that's cool, but what if we wanted to pulse more? You know, not just once, you know, increases, decreases, that's it, you know, end of animation. Well, all we need to do is just multiply the output that we get from pi by some value, by some number, right? If we give it a value of 2, it's going to, well, let me show you. Let me just multiplication. So the output that we get from pi gets multiplied by, let's say, 2 here, like so. And we connect it to the value like that. And now, technically, let me also grab a panel and put it here. Now, technically, if I move this, so if I move this around, you can see that the sphere contracts and expands 2 times, right? If I give this a value of 4, can I go for wireframe view? I think this is going to be faster. The sphere contracts, expands, contracts, expands, contracts, expands, and contracts, expands. It contracts and expands 4 times, right? So this slider right here, if I group it and call it, I can call it repetition amount. How many times do we repeat the pulsing during our animation, right? Well, this one is just the main control. I can actually, I should probably do this. Color, let's give it some sort of red color and let's make it into a blob and call it main controller. There we go. Now we won't miss it. So this is like, it's going to control all of our animations. Okay, so we have a pulsar, and this one is freaking out now. It's saying cannot scale with the factor of 0, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? We can't scale it. So on certain values, it's going to break. So we can't have it just like that, just like straight up sinus value. We need to remap these numbers to fit within certain bounds, you know, of our scaling factors. And I know already the bounds, they should be between 0.5, which should be the smallest value of our scale, and 2, which is going to be the largest value of our scale. So what we're going to do is we're going to use remap numbers tool, which has 3 inputs here. The first input, oh wait, I think chat is doing, yep, 1.2 millimeters. Ah, yes, Olga has answered that. There are 3 inputs. The first input is basically what kind of values are we remapping to new values, right? So we're going to change the sinus values to fit in between 0.5 and 2, right? So those are, the sinus values are going to come into our value here. And then the source domain, so the source asks us how low do these sinus values go and how high do they go, right? We need to give it like the smallest value and the highest, which we can expect to get from here. And we know from high school that it is in between -1 and 1. And we can write it in 2 ways. We can either write it within a panel, so we can grab a panel and just double click on it and write -1 to 1, like just like that. -1 to, wait, that's not 1, that's 2. -1 to 1. There we go. We can write it like that, and it's going to say, yeah, sure, understood. Or we can construct it in a bit more elaborative way, where we do construct domain. We use construct domain node, not construct domain squared, by the way, just a regular construct domain node. And domain start, we give it 1, but it's not 1, it's a -1. Right, so that's a negative node here. And then for domain end, we give it just a regular one. Well, actually, we can reuse that slider that we have here, like that. And the output of this would still be -1 to 1, right? So you can either construct it like that, or you can just write it in the panel. Just make sure that you don't press enter and you know, in the panel, and you don't start a new line of text, because if you start a new line of text, it's not going to work properly. It's going to start freaking out. So it's just make sure that once you write -1 to 1, you just click out of the panel, and it's just going to kind of finish up. You don't want more than 1 line of text, even if the second line is empty. Okay, so now we are, let me just delete that. Now we are remapping the sinus values to some sort of new target values. And those target values are also going to be in the panel. I will write whatever was -1 will be 0.5, and whatever was 1 will be 2. Right? Meaning that we are compressing and we're kind of moving the values, all of the values, into the positives. So we have a new minimum value and a new maximum value. And it's like magic, it's automatically going to recalculate all of the sinus values to fit between these two. And if I connect the mapped numbers here, you can see that now as I move the slider, it's still going to pulsate, but now it's going to pulsate between 0.5 and 1. 0.5 and 2, sorry. Just like that. All right, so we have that done. That's for pulsating. Honestly, that's like everything else that we do is just going to be the same thing done in different ways. But I guess it's important. So we don't need that panel anymore, and I can call all of this together with the scaling. I will just group all of this just to keep things tidy, and I'll call it pulsate, if that's a word, pulse, I guess. Pulse center sphere. There we go. So now it's going to pulse. Okay, let's do something else. Let's take small spheres, for example. Let's say the big one pulses, the small spheres, they will rotate, right? And they will rotate in around a weird axis, right? Maybe the axis is also going to be animated, we'll see if we have the time. So these small spheres, they will rotate in 3D, right? In 3D direction. So rotate 3D for all of these small spheres, like that. And the angle of rotation, always do this. Like, at least for me, I really hate working with radians. I enjoy working with degrees rather than radians. So you can just right-click on the angle and choose degrees. And then, you can just type in human numbers rather than, 2 multiplied by pi. So degrees for angle. And angle is going to be, of course, controlled by the main controller, but we'll need to do some math for it before we can actually connect it. Then we have the center point. Well, for the center point, we actually already have the centroid here, right, measured from the big sphere, and it's the same center point, right? So we're going to be rotating around the same the same point, which is, let me show you, this guy right here, right? So we can reuse it, and I will. Just connect it like that. So now the spheres are going to be rotated around the center point, and the axis is going to be, well, z-axis is kind of boring because they will just kind of spin horizontally. Let's do like a diagonal axis, right? So we will do, and by the way, every vector, every direction can be described by 3 numbers, right? X, Y, and Z values of that direction. So if we want a completely diagonal direction, we can just say 1, 1, 1, so it's kind of going in all 3 directions at the same time, thus it's diagonal. Or you can just do construct vector. That is not the tool. Wait. Vector, tab, vector. Oh, okay, sorry. Vector x, y, z, apparently. Same thing as construct vector. Vector x, y, z component. I will connect it immediately to my axis here. And here I can just describe the direction of the vector with 3 numbers. How much is it leaning towards x, how much is it leaning towards y, and how much is it leaning towards z. And for this vector, I will just say it's kind of 45 degrees to all of them. And to do that, I just connect number, a number. It can be 1, it can be anything else, to x, y, and z. To explain it, if we have a box like that, and let me just say 10 by 10 by 10, zoom in. Let's say we have a box. The way this vector is made, it's basically, it starts counting from, let's say, the bottom left corner of the box, and then in x direction it counts 10. Oh, well, it counts 1, but let's say it counts 10. Right, in the x direction it counts 1, then in y direction it counts 1, and then in z direction it counts 1. Thus it makes another point right here. And it just kind of calculates the vector between those 2 points like so. So we end up with this direction in the world, right? Diagonal to all 3 axes. Where are we? There we are. Okay, so it's a diagonal direction, and let's just see how it looks like. I will just create a slider between 0 and 180 just to see, and I'll just connect it to the angle and kind of rotate it. All right, we need to disable the preview of the original sphere so that they're not in the way. So I'm rotating it, and yeah, they are doing their thing, right? They are rotating around some sort of a angle cleanly. Okay, that's cool. Delete. So now we need not to have a separate slider for the angle, right? We need to use this big boy, this main controller here, for the to drive the angle. And to do that, again, we will be using remap values. This time we don't need a sinus curve, it's just going to be rotating, so we are straight up jumping into remap numbers, right? So the number that we're going to remap is going to be what we get from the slider, right? So that's the value. The source domain, by the way, by default, the source domain is set to be between 0 and 1, which is very convenient for us. You know, if you hover over inputs, you can see their default values. So between 0 and 1 is very, very convenient for us because this slider indeed goes between 0 and 1. So we don't need to change anything here for the source. And for the target though, we do need to change because we're kind of changing up what we have from the slider, what we get from the slider, we're changing it to degrees, right, of rotation. So here I will just create a panel, and I'll call it, not call it, but enter, double click on it. And here I will just type in, okay, we start at 0 degrees, but we should end at 720, maybe? So it's going to spin around 2 times, right? Around the axis. 360 times 2. Then we click out, connect it to the target. And now as we move I can actually show you here, mapped values. Let me drag them back here to the slider. As I move the slider, the degrees increase between 0 until they reach 720, right? So now I can straight up connect the mapped values here to the angle here. Time to check. Okay. So now we have pulsing sphere in the middle, and we have some dancing small lights. I guess these will shine light as well around the sphere. Now we have 2 parts done. Let me group this bad boy and call it rotate around center. Sure, rotate around center, that's fine. And now let's do it for the rest. And for the rest, it's going to be quite similar, like quite the same. I will say, what's the onion? Oh, the onion is that. So for the onion, we just kind of rotate it around the z-axis. So since we're lazy, I'm just going to take this rotate around center, like group, and just copy it straight up. Copy it up and connect the onion to the geometry that we are rotating, like so. And technically it should kind of rotate as well. It's a little bit slow though. Why is it so slow? But it is rotating, right? The problem is that it's rotating around the same axis and at the same rate as the small spheres, which will not make it into a nice visual. So we need to mess around with it. I will probably just disconnect the direction from X and Y here for the vector. Come on. There we go. So basically the onion is going to just rotate around the Z axis, around the vertical axis. And here maybe it rotates much faster. So let's say Okay, where's my calculator? Calculator, come on. Oh, come here, come to the other window. Come, yeah, okay. 360 multiplied by, let's say 6. 2160, okay. So from 0 until 2160. That's how it, how many times it's gonna spin around 6 times, you know, during the animation. Okay, so it's gonna be a fast spinny boy. Right now everything is transparent and it's hard to distinguish things, so I will just do a preview, custom preview for this stuff. So let's say the middle one is pink, sure, that's the default value. Custom preview. The other ones are, let's say, color swatch, connected to material. Yeah, sure, other ones are white. That's fine. And then the onion is gonna be yellow or something. Custom preview again. Swatch. Where's the yellow? Am I colorblind? Why can't? Yeah, that's not yellow. That is good enough. Orange, but let's say actually yellow. Okay, so we have that. Let's see how laggy it is. Pretty damn laggy. Oh, so fun. Okay, super laggy. If it gets that laggy, like for me it's laggy, of course, because I have a Zoom meeting and I'm recording it and I have 2 screens and then all of that jazz. But if it gets too laggy, you can always convert these guys into a mesh, right? Because meshes are much faster to animate. So to do that, I will just say mesh. Mesh brep for the onion. It takes a while. And for the settings, I'll say speed. Settings speed. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's not that bad. And connect it to geometry like that. So this is my small kind of, not workaround, but it just increases the performance quite a bit. I'll actually borrow this for the spheres. Copy paste. Borrow this for the spheres. So we're going to visualize it, visualize everything as meshes. I think that's a better way to do it. Oh yeah, and the big sphere as well. Should be much faster now. Big sphere. Come on, connect it to the geometry here. So there are 2 options for meshing. Well, actually 3. There's the custom options, but that one is scary. Custom settings, rather. That's the scary boy. But there's also the 2 non-scary ones. One is settings speed, and the other one is settings quality. Where is it? There we go. Settings quality. Right. With speed, you get more speed. With quality, you get more polygons. In this case, I want it to be fast. So let's see if it actually became faster. Yes, it has. So now as yeah, cool. As I move the slider, the whole thing spins quite fast, and things are pulsing and spinning inside, and everything is neat and dandy. All right, next. Can we do this in Arctic view though? Let's just check. Yeah, it's a little bit laggy in the Arctic view. Let's come back here. For last 3, I will do them fast so that we can jump to the actual rendering, right? And I'll also talk about the camera and so on. So for the ring, Kind of same thing as rotating around axis, so I'll just use the same method. Actually convert the ring into a mesh. Please just do it. Yeah, there we go. Convert the ring, connect it to brep. There we go. And then straight up, it's the ring that we are going to plug in here, and the direction is going to be Z and Y. I don't know why, but let's just say that's what we want. And color code it. Please color code it. Come on, copy paste. There we go. Color code it to be, let's go for red. And the value, why are you here duplicated? Don't be duplicated. The value, where is it? I want this ring to spin quite slowly. So let's say 360. Right? So now we can check it again. Some things are spinning fast, some things are spinning slow. All right, so we have that. Then we have two last ones, outer blade 1, outer blade 2, exactly the same thing. I guess this is all going to be about rotation, like this part of the tutorial. So I'll just copy it actually 2 times. One is going to be for one blade, the other one is going to be for the other. Like that. Like if I didn't need to kind of explain this and show you everything in panels, this doesn't take this long, right? So setting everything up doesn't take this long, so don't be, don't think that, this takes forever. It doesn't. It's actually quite fast. You copy a lot of things. So we have that going on. And let's just have 2 custom previews for blade 1. Or maybe this is blade 2, I don't remember. So blade 2 is going to be green, beautiful green color, very foresty. And blade 1 is going to be blue. There we go. So I always color code things just so that I can see what's where. Okay, and this one, let's say, this is gonna be a rough one. So I want this blue one. Actually, let me disable all of the previews. That doesn't work. Wireframe, there we go. So I disable all of the previews except this ring here, because I want it to rotate along the way it's bending, right? And now if I actually rotate it, I don't think it's gonna do that. It's actually doing that, come on. Yeah, that's lucky, I guess. But the other one will not. So let's check out this one. This one will not. This one will be messed up. Yeah, there we go. So we want this one to also rotate along, the way it's bending. So to do that, here in the bottom left, if you can see it, yeah, you can. In the bottom left, you can see X, Y, Z, like those X, Y, Z directions, of the world. And according to them, you can describe what kind of vector you want, right? So even better is to go to top view and first of all decide, like not decide, rather understand the direction of the vector in the top view according to x and y. So we want a vector. I'm going to just like brutally draw it in the top view, but we want a vector, the axis of rotation, to be like that, right? So that it kind of rotates around the axis, right? And it will need to be tilted up as well. So it's going to be either positive or negative y, but it's not going to have any x. Like x is going to be 0, while y is going to have a value of 1, for instance. So if I check it out under green, if I check it out, x is indeed 0 and y is 1. Wait, wait, this should work for this one. Why doesn't it work? Wait, let me try with x is actually 1 and y is 0. Swear to God, if this works. Okay, it doesn't. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. How do I? Give me 10 seconds. I'll think of a graphic way of how to show you actually what's going through my head as I'm trying to construct these vectors, because I think this is an important part. Just 10 seconds. Okay. I know. I know how to show you. So we are dealing with the green one, with this one right here, right? And we are dealing precisely with this vector. So best way for me to show you what's going on is to actually show the vector around which we, the pole around which we are rotating. So to show the pole, by default vectors are not displayed in Rhino. But to show it, I can draw a line around that vector. So SDL, line, starting point, direction, length. So my starting point will be this point right here, which is this bad boy here, like that. The length is going to be like 10, I don't know. Is 10 big? No, 10 is not big. 100. 100 is not a lot, okay? 1,000. There we go. 1,000 is fine. So now I can show you the pole around which we rotate. Right now I haven't connected anything to the direction, and by default the direction is set to be 001, meaning z, meaning upwards, right? So, and it indeed draws the line completely like upwards. If I connect the vector around which we are actually rotating to the direction, then we will see how that pole looks like, and it's not good, right? So what we need, let me disconnect it from there, connect it like so. What we need is we need to find a value where it's actually going to where the line is actually going to be like that, right? Well, this is, god damn it, yeah, there we go. Where the pole of rotation is going to be like that. So my guess is that it needs to be positive in x, and it needs to be negative in y, and positive in z. I think that's good. And it's usually, you can kind of draw it out on piece of paper, and that's going to be easier. But for me, I just kind of test it out and just see what happens. Yeah, there we go. So the actual value of the vector is 1 minus 1, 1. Then the pole, oh, fuck. The pole is wrong. It's still wrong. Let's see. 1 minus 1, 1. What if we have this as 0? That is incorrect. Oh my god, why? I think that's because I have messed up the rotation, the initial rotation. We're so close to finishing the first part of the tutorial and I'm just messing it up. So like that. So this needs to be, oh, never mind. It just needs to go negative here. So it's negative y with nothing connected to, whoops, sorry, with nothing connected to x. Actually opening up a box, you know, as a reference actually helps out. So nothing is connected to x. There we go. And then in z, it's actually connected to z. There we go. Okay. If you get lost, just turn on the guide and it will be much easier to understand the directions. Finally, sorry for the wait, but it is what it is. We have our axis, and now if I rotate around that axis with my main controller, yeah, this bad boy just rotates, you know, cleanly. Whew, okay. Let's turn on all other previews, like that, and start rotating the slider, and everything kind of spins around, scales up and down, and it's all neat and tidy. Okay. The speed of spinning is 360 degrees. I think that's fine. We will kind of keep it at 360 because I just want to go forward with the tutorial. So we have done we have done an animation which is being controlled by a single slider, right, in Grasshopper. And you can change the materials and whatnot. So, for instance, let me just change everything to kind of... Actually, let's go for blue. So let's say everything is kind of grayish blue color, and just connect all of these in as a blue object. Like that, like that, like that, and like that. I'm just holding down the shift key and connecting everything to one custom preview, and I will be deleting all other ones because I don't need to color code it anymore. So everything is blue, and then we can go to Arctic view. Like that. We can show selected in the Arctic view and just choose to show, you know, the static part and the lady here and these two pillows here in the top, and there we go, here in the bottom. Right, something like that. And we can do the same thing, you know, we can add materials to these guys through properties, material, and just kind of add a material to it, a regular Rhino material, but we will not be doing that because we'll be using Vray for it. But just to show you how it's gonna look like, let me find a nice angle. Let's see, something like that. Center it a bit, and then I can, even without Vray, without having Vray, I can record a video, right, of this slider changing. And I can do that by, well, first of all, setting the slider to 0, like that, but then right-clicking on the slider and clicking on animate. Animate, it gives me all of the animation controls. So I specify the folder. I'll just make a new one and call it AAHN15 test raw Rhino. So this is just raw Rhino animation. Hit OK. BMP format is fine. That means it's not going to be compressed. Resolution, this is 4K resolution. I don't think that's necessary. Let me just do 720p by 720 by 1280, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to keep that 16 by 9 proportion. And frame count, this is basically how long the animation is going to be, right? How long it's going to take to move the slider from 0 to 1. How many frames will it make? So regularly, like all of the movies that you see, they run at 24 frames per second. And that's cinematography, frame rate. If something is running too smoothly, and it's not a smooth animation by far, 24 frames per second is kind of shit. But for movies, it's the most cinematic frame rate, because if you move into 60 or even higher frame rate for movies, everything starts looking like this kind of a cheap TV show. Everything's a little bit too smooth. It's not cinematic anymore. So for movies, it's 24 frames per second. For presentation videos, like animation videos, it's usually 60 frames per second. Or you could do 30 and kind of say screw it, but it's usually 60. I always do 30 because I don't think that my animations are that good, and that it's the frame rate that's the problem. It's usually someone between the chair and the screen. That's the problem with my animations. So for here, let's say we are doing 30 frames per second, meaning that frame count, if we say 300 frames, it's going to be 10 seconds, right, of animation. Sure, let's do 10 seconds. And then you have include tag option, which is whatever. It basically just, if you do include tag, at the bottom of the animation is going to just say statistics, which frame it is and so on. We don't want it. We want to keep it clean. You position the camera actually in Rhino, and then you hit OK. Once you hit OK, you can see that the thing is spinning, it's saving the frames, and so on. What about 5-minute break, and I'll just show you how the animation looks like once the break is finished. Okay, so let's have a 5 minutes, just like 45 past 3. Let's continue. Okay, so again, Premiere Pro for stitching the frames together, not necessary if you don't have it. DaVinci Resolve is a free one. There's also Sony Vegas, which is not free. Photoshop even has an option to do that, but it's a little bit clunky with Photoshop. So it's better to just have a dedicated program for it. Hello, can you just open up, please? Premiere, come on. You can do it. Oh, there we go. Let me just move this to the side. Oh my God, what's happening with the resolution? There we go. So let me just make a new project here. Yeah, doesn't matter. Hit OK. Wait for it to have a heart attack. There we go. So this is like what I use for videos and so on. And basically to just import the frames that we got, and let me show you the frames while we're at it. I need to fix the resolution of the screens. That's for the next video. Where are we? Desktop. And here we have this folder right here. So here, you know, all frames are separate bitmap files, separate images. To stitch them together, I just double click on import media to start. So I'll just double click there on the bottom right, bottom left of the Adobe Premiere Pro. Go to desktop, find my stuff. And it's the way it works is the same for every program, for every like video editing software. And I choose the first frame, and it will automatically here give me a tick mark to image sequence, to import it as an image sequence. If it doesn't give you this option automatically, then you need to tick mark it for it to work. Same thing for DaVinci Resolve, Sony Vegas, and so on. So I hit open, it imports, and then here I have, you know, that file, and it says frame rate 25 frames per second. So it's guessing, right? It's trying to guess what we want. We don't want it to be 25, so I'll just right click on it, go to modify, interpret footage, and here I can, of course, the menu is in the wrong screen. Come on. And here I can just say, assume this frame rate, and I can say, why is this so big? Anyway, I can just say 30 frames, hit OK. Now it's 30 frames per second. I just drag and drop it in, just like that. That's it. We have it here, right? And that's how it looks. This is like a, did it crash? No, it didn't. Okay, good. So this is a like really low quality preview. But if we want to get a video out of it, we just go to File, Export, Media. I assume my, oh my God, why are you crashing? There we go. So we get this like screen here where we have all of the options for exporting, and I actually don't care about the like most of the options because I work with presets and I have my own preset set up here, YouTube, but it's like 99% of the time YouTube 1080p full HD preset will work for you, right? So you can just use that. In this case, I don't even care. I will just say match source, high bitrate, hit export. It's going to encode it and export it. Oh, and I can see that even my webcam is now lagging as it's doing that. It's going to do all of that, and that's it. It gets saved on, in my case, it gets saved on my desktop. So now if I'll just close this one. No, don't save the project. Let's go to the desktop. Let's just find it. There it is. 5.7 megabytes of cool stuff. Play with VLC. Of course, wrong screen again. Just go here. Come here. Just please be normal. Oh my God. I'm struggling. There we go. Yeah, and it's doing this thing, right? Things are spinning. Things are kind of animating. If you want to have, let's say, if you want to repeat this, because we used 360 degrees for everything, right? Of rotation. meaning that this animation can be looped. If you want to loop this animation in Adobe Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, or DaVinci Resolve, you just take that snippet of video and you just copy, and you just kind of, then you get a longer version of it, just repeating the same clip. But yeah, that's that with raw Rhino footage, right? For Vray, now let's actually move into Vray. For Vray, it's going to be a bit different, and now I'll start working with materials and so on. So before I begin doing anything, a good idea before I do anything else is to actually save the documents, because this is where it will become crashy for sure. So save that, make sure that I don't have any unnecessary things running. I don't. Okay, so let's start with some Vray settings, right? Right here. Oh, and you'll need to let me know if once I run the Vray render, if it's going to, come on, just come in here, if it's going to start lagging too much for you, if the voice is going to start breaking out, and then so on. I already have a few materials here apparently. Clothes, helmet, and skin. Oh yeah, that's for the character, but those materials are very basic, and I'll keep them as they are. And I'll just apply some material to this piece here, and maybe I will not be, so this tutorial is not about creating materials and so on. It's rather about animating them. So I'll be very fast about it, or rather fast about it. I'll go to the library, which is on the left-hand side. I'll go to materials. I'll find some sort of a concrete material. Let's just go for something simple. All of those are kind of ugly. Concrete simple D01, sure. Let's drag and drop it in here, and I'll just apply it to my selection here, like that. And maybe here I don't even need to see it. Well, let's look at it. So the tiling is wrong for this guy. So I will select it, go to texture mapping, and since I'm lazy, I'll just apply box mapping. Enter, enter, enter. There we go. And I will say, so this is 500 by 500 by 500 centimeters. And this concrete tiles every 2 meters. So I will change this to 200 by 200 by 200. There we go. That's our concrete texture. Then for our two remaining static objects, the top guy here and the bottom guy here, I will go back to my Vray asset editor and I will find, let's go for metals, I guess. So I'll find some sort of a metal that's nice. Blurry aluminum, sure. Let's go for blurry aluminum. Apply to selection. So these guys are now blurry. And let's keep it simple. So everything, all of these blades are also going to be blurry aluminum, except these spheres here. These spheres will shine light. I want them to shine light, right? So I will preemptively create two materials for these spheres. Even though I can't select them, they are in Grasshopper, not in Rhino, so I can't apply the material to them directly. But I will preemptively create the material. So in this case, I will create emissive materials. So I'll just go to here in the bottom left corner of the Vray asset editor. I'll click on the create asset. I'll go to materials and I'll choose materials and I'll choose emissive. A material that shines light. Create that and call it cold light. Cold light, and let's look at it. Why can't I? What the? Hello? Okay, this is weird. The menu is breaking apart. Well, that's the first. I can't access the settings. Wait, let me see if I can do that on the other screen. No, I can't. Holy shit. This is super fun. Okay. Can we do that in Grasshopper though? So, okay, while I'm struggling, I have a new monitor, and the laptop resolution and the monitor resolution are not the same. So some things are just kind of breaking and not working. Let me try opening it up again. No, it's not opening. And it's not even dragging. Come on, please. Okay, let's do that in Grasshopper then. If it comes down to that, we will need to restart Rhino, and then it's gonna work. Let me just check if we can create a material in Grasshopper first. Materials, Vray material simple, emission. It does have emission, but it doesn't have strength for the emission, so that's not gonna work. Crap. What about lightning? Also doesn't have that. Fuck. Okay. Okay, let's restart. Sorry. It is what it is. So I'll just save it and restart it, and then we will continue. Basically, the way we're going to do this, let me break it down while we wait for me to kind of restart the whole thing. The way we're going to do it is I will set up the whole scene in Rhino, and then I will add some elements and their materials that I'm going to be rendering out from Grasshopper back into Rhino, right? Without baking, it will automatically do it through the Vray plugin within Grasshopper. So it's going to be like we have a scene of all of the static objects, and we apply or superimpose the dynamic objects into that scene. That's the way Rhino works. And also we'll have some camera control of it as well. So let's wait for it to stop not responding, hopefully someday, soon. And now let's just pray that when I click this button here, okay, it opens up again in the wrong window. But now I have this side panel, thankfully. So now I can actually change the cold light here of the emissive material to actually have cold light, which is going to be, it's going to have this kind of bluish tint to it. And intensity, I'll just go for 100. I don't know. You know, if we need it less, we will have it as less. But for now, let's just do 100. Okay, so that's done. That's done. Let's see some settings here, like rendering settings. So render output, I will straight up jump to, for now, let's do 720, like lower resolution. While we're checking, I will say that I don't want to have any environment, so I want environment to be completely black. Maybe we want some lights though, so I will be creating lights in just a second. Yeah, for now let's keep it as simple as possible, right? For camera, yeah, we don't do anything with the camera as well. So interactive rendering, I will turn that one on because as I change stuff, I want to actually see it change. And before we run the interactive renderer, let's create some lights. So usually you have 3 lights in every like product scene, a scene where you showcase a product. And why is it not showing up? Hello, shaded. Oh, there we go. There it is. So that's our Vray light, just a regular rectangular light, nothing fancy. I'll just position it in the, at an angle like that. I will make a copy of it like that. Maybe rotate it back. So there's an arrow sticking out from the light. It shows the direction at which the light is actually shining. So let's do something like that. Like that. Yeah, that seems okay. You can do HDRI lighting as well. That's fine. Actually, let's just have 2 lights because we also have we will have the central lighting from the spheres. So let's just have 2 of them. One important thing, since I copied from this light, both of them are tied to one another. If I change options of one, like settings of one light, the other one will change together with it, right? So these are like direct copies of one another and they will inherit each other's options or properties. To make them not be like twins, I need to select one of them, go to Properties, go to Light, and choose Make Unique. Make Unique, and now these 2 lights are completely separate from one another. So I can make one of them red or orange, just slightly orange, like that. And the other one I can make maybe, yeah, let's keep it as white, whatever, just to have. And usually with the lights, you want the warm one to be, well, it doesn't matter whether or not it's the warm one, but you want one of them to be stronger while the other one is weaker, right? So I'll just choose the white one and I'll say it's actually 50. The strength of it is 50. Yeah, that should do the trick. There are more things, and oh my god, my arrow is gone again. I can't access the settings again on the right hand side of the panel, but that's fine. We will manage without them for now. All right, that's all we need. Let's check out real-time render just to see how this whole thing looks. Where is it? Oh, there it is on the other screen. And can I drag it here? Yes, I can. There we go. Not the best, for sure. Looks kind of bad. So there are a few things that I want to change. First one is I kind of want to zoom in a bit closer, just to see better. Oh, by the way, if it starts super lagging, let me know. If my voice starts breaking down and so on, let me know. So let's change, first of all, the camera settings. It's way too intense. So I'll go for camera and increase the exposure value to like 13. Yeah, that's better. 13 is better. And actually for the light, maybe the backlight could be stronger. Let's do 75. Yeah, something like that should do the trick. And then I want to add a little bit more pizzazz to it, but I can't because I can't access the right-hand side. Well, that's fine. We are doing a very basic explanation of just animation. So this is what we're dealing with, right? We need to add our Grasshopper geometry into this render. So to do that, let me run Grasshopper. Our script. And notice how I also have the original forms that I'm animating, I have them hidden, right? This is so that we don't render two versions on top of each other, you know, the static one and the dynamic, the rotating one within Grasshopper. Let me just wait for it to load up. The texture looks pretty bad though. But what can you do? We'll make it work. For the actual video, for the YouTube video, I will render out this whole animation. Right now, I will not make you sit through, you know, the whole animation rendering process. I will render out the whole animation with maybe some fog and so on, just so that you can kind of see what's up, what's going on. There we go. That's our Grasshopper, and that's our example. Let's just wait for the script to load up. It might take a little bit of time. It's actually didn't take a lot of time. So yeah. So basically, we want to bring in these guys back into Vray render. To do that, we need to start working with Vray nodes in Grasshopper. And I can do that by, first of all, specifying the geometry that, or rather, maybe let's do it backwards. Let's do the final step first, and then we will feed stuff into the final step. We work in this way with Kangaroo plugin. We will work in this way with Vray plugin as well, because it makes a little bit more sense to first have the framework and then feed into that framework. So the thing that renders your geometry inside of a project is called, Vray render in project. By the way, they do have long explanations of what the nodes do. If you have time, read them. Vray render in project is the node that is going to say that the scene that is created in Grasshopper should be rendered inside of your Vray render, right? So this little guy here will do exactly that. It asks us for a scene. We don't have a scene yet, right? So we need to go to render and find Vray render. Just this node here, Vray render, which will output a scene for us. So now we can connect this guy to this guy, right? Straight up like that. Okay, that's fine. And now we have a crap ton of options. Actually, they did a very nice thing with it, where you can right click on the node and you can say show controls, and it's going to kind of populate all of the options that you can kind of change from preset values. It's going to like create all of these inputs. So what kind of engine do you use for rendering? Is it CPU or GPU or RTX? In my case, I will be using CPU because my GPU is currently recording the video that we're doing right now. So I don't want to break it. So I'll just use the processor. And yeah, why not? Just processor. This is the most stable one as well. So CPU is fine. Mode interactive. Sure, for now we can keep it as interactive as we did before. Sampler progressive. I always have progressive sampling turned on. Won't explain what it does. Just have it as progressive rather than bucket. I think it's called bucket. Yeah, bucket, the other one. Just have progressive. Quality medium. Honestly, there's a huge gap between you have like these quality presets, low plus, medium plus, high plus. There is a huge difference between low and medium, and there is not a large difference between medium and high. Unless you're doing like interior renders, then the high is quite better, but in this case I'll just use medium. And then output image, I will later on give it a file name, you know, to save. But that's going to be later. For now, we are not saving an image, we're just going to look at it. Output resolution. If I hover my mouse over this, it will say 960 by 540. I don't think it will care because we are going to be rendering out in the project. We'll see. If we need to, we'll change the resolution here. Then we have camera, light rig, light, blah, 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 all of this stuff. So let's start by actually getting the geometry into Vray, and then we'll work with camera and so on. So for the geometry, we need Vray geometry here for this to work, right? So under geometry tab or subtab, geometry subtab, we have Vray geometry node, right? So I will just place it here and connect it like so to my Vray geometry, which basically asks us for three things. First one is give me the geometry, you know, that you want to render. Second one is give me the material of the geometry that you want to render. And third one, would you like to hide it or no, right? So visible we don't care about, we will always show it, but geometry and material we do need to give it. So for the geometry, let's start from the top, right? Come on, you go away. So this guy right here is that blade here, right? That banana that's rotating around. So that's going to be aluminum banana. So I just take it and connect it to my geometry input here. And honestly, for this node, for this Vray geometry node, I will connect everything that is going to be made out of aluminum, right? Because that will just save me time. So I know that that banana, this banana, that ring, and the onion are all going to be made out of aluminum, you know, in my example. And these last two are going to be spheres that shine light. I will deal with them later. For now, let's just do aluminum. So we have that going on. And then material, I do have aluminum in my Rhino file, right? So I can say Vray material from project. I can choose Vray material from project. I can place it here, click on the arrow, and then choose aluminum blurry, and just connect it to material like that. Hit save, just in case. And technically, this should be enough to render out. Let's see, oops. To render it out, I wonder if we can do it here. Let me check if we can do it straight up in Rhino. Can we? Yes, we can. Oh, okay. One important thing that I forgot. Notice how this is all messed up? Like the texture is all messed up here? Yeah, so it's messed up because it's also rendering out. Where is it? Hello? Grasshopper, come back to me. Grasshopper, please. Grasshopper. There we go. It's rendering out this messed up thing because this material preview, custom material preview, if I right click on it, there's a tick mark that says render. So that material is also going to be rendered on top, like of the aluminum geometry. So I'll untick it, right? So now the render is unticked for the custom preview. All right. So now we have that going on. Let's try again. Render. Now it should be fine. It should be fine. Yes, it is fine. Okay. Let me stop rendering because I don't want to wait that long. So this part is okay, right? We still need lights inside. So for the lights, it's kind of the same thing. I know I'm rushing through this, but if you're missing stuff, just check out the video. Make it like 0.5 x speed. So for those spheres that will shine light, I will need to create another Vray geometry node, right? So actually, maybe I can, let's just do it cleanly. So I'll go to geometry, Vray geometry, I'll place a node there. For material, I'll also choose a material from project because we have the cold light material created. And I'll connect it like so. And for the geometry, I'll just straight up connect the small spheres and the large spheres, like so. Holding down the shift key, you can connect more than one thing. And then also holding down the shift key, I'll connect the second Vray geometry to this input right here. So technically, if now I press render, it should have spheres inside that are indeed shining light. Super, right? So we have that going on. The intensity is a little bit much, so I will decrease the intensity of the cold light. I can't decrease it because my fucking options are gone. So we will stick with the intensity. But yeah, let's just finish up with the tutorial. There are a few more things that we want to fix, right? First one is I haven't showed you how to move the camera, right, with Vray. And the second one is how to actually connect Vray to the slider so that Vray is able to move the slider. How can you map materials when you are assigning them from Grasshopper? Map materials when you are assigning them from Grasshopper. There is a plugin for that, and it's called Human. I will write it. Human plugin. So Human plugin will deal with that, but other than that, without the Human plugin, can you do it? You can't. There is one workaround though, if you don't want to use an additional plugin. And that workaround is called triplanar mapping. If I create that's a good question though. If I create a material, like a generic material, whatever, I can't show you. God damn it. I can show you on Google though. There is an option like Vray triplanar mapping. Let's wait. Triplanar texture mapping. It's basically where you can apply noise, texture, where you can apply color correction and so on. You know, for the bitmaps, you can also apply triplanar mapping. And the way it works is you have texture X, Y, and Z. Usually you just need to give it texture X, and it's going to automatically apply box mapping of that texture. You don't need to apply box mapping then in Rhino. This is the box mapping inside of Vray, right? As you create the material. So basically triplanar mapping is you specify the size of the material in X, Y, and Z directions. So here it would be 0.01 meters, like every centimeter it's going to tile the material, if that makes sense. And the texture itself lives here. So the structure of the material would look like, let's say you have a Vray material and you have the diffuse color, you know, for which you want to apply a brick texture, let's say. So as you click on that texture panel of the diffuse color, you don't immediately jump to brick texture, but rather you create a triplanar mapping texture. And then that triplanar mapping texture will ask you to give it the brick texture inside. But then you have the possibility to change the scale, right? So this is like a workaround. And honestly, like Ash Thorpe, no, not Ash Thorpe, the other guy. Let me remember real quick. The friendly, that's not how you write friendly robot. Robot art station. Just a second. We can't, oh, okay, it's not here. Where did I see? Oh, yeah, Instagram. Instagram. The friendly, yeah, there we go. The friendly robot. So this person right here, like from the videos that I've seen, he's using both Octane and Vray, and he's doing everything with triplanar mapping. Are there any like good? I guess that's a nice one. Oh, that's a very small one though. Do you see it? Yeah, you can kind of see it. So these are renders, right? Even though these are renders with overpaint, of course, in Photoshop, but all of the textures are done with triplanar mapping. So that's that. Yeah, stuff like that. Oh, actually, yeah. So sorry for this kind of a segue, but it's something that I want to showcase in terms of aesthetics and style. Where do we have it? Yeah, for instance, this one, the empty valley, right? So that's a render, right? Which is, I think it's quite impressive, and the way these guys like Ash Thorpe and this one, the way they work is they use indeed triplanar mapping for their 3D renders. It's pretty cool. Don't know why yeah, I just wanted to show some cool pictures, I guess. Anyway, that's that. Coming back here, we will not be using a generic tool here. Let's come back to Grasshopper, and let me just show you a few last things. So we have camera, and we have timeline, right? So, and then you have like render elements and crap like that, but that's whatever. I will show you the camera, how to control the camera position, and how to actually use a timeline to animate it and save every frame. So for camera, under geometry, no, under render, there is Vray camera setting, or Vray camera node, where we can just straight up connect camera to camera input of the brains of Vray render like that, right? And let me actually drag it down maybe, where it asks us for a type. Can we have show controls? There we go. So it asks us for a type of the camera. So it can be either standard or axonometric, orthographic, right? Or VR camera. So we are using standard. It asks us for position and for target. So from where you're looking at things and what are you looking at, right? So it asks us for 2 points in space. I could just say one point is here and the other point is here, right? So somewhere here, and just reference them in, but that would be very static. So instead, let's first, target is easiest. Let's first focus on the target of the camera. That's going to be the center of our shape, right? You know, it's going to be right in the middle of that center sphere. This is where we're always going to be looking at. So I can do that. I can grab the target by just taking this bad boy here. Remember the point around which we rotate everything? That's the center, right? So I can just reuse it. I can just take that that centroid point and just drag and connect it. I have no idea if this is the target. I guess this is the target. Yes, correct. So we can connect it to the target like so. Usually I drag the nodes next to what I'm connecting them to. And for the position, we can become quite experimental with it. For instance, I could say that my position of the camera is going to be a point on a curve, right? And as I slide the slider, the point will travel along the curve. Let me show you. I just draw a curve like that, right? Just a, it's kind of a boring curve. Let's do something more funky. Like that, right? So I have a curve here in Rhino. And let me reference it in as a curve. Like that. Set one curve, like that. And I'll immediately group it and call it camera path, right? Because it makes sense to immediately call it.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, okay. Now it's good.
Now it's good? Okay, seems like it just said that my internet is not stable, but it's fine now?
No, it's fine.
Okay, that's good. But there's some chat. Oh, it's freezing, okay. Ooh, well, but next time also let me know. That's good that you're telling me these things. So we have a camera path here, right? And we need a point on it, right? And we need to be able to animate and move that point, right? For where our camera is. So we can do that by using evaluate curve component. Evaluate curve, because if we evaluate this curve at 0.5, a parameter that is 0.5, right? It's going to give us, nope. It just gives us, that's wrong. It should give us a point right in the middle, but it doesn't. If that happens, that means we need to do one extra step, which is not that hard. You just right click on the curve input here, right click on it, and you choose reparameterize, meaning that the length of the curve, the way Grasshopper will understand the length of the curve is going to be between 0 and 1, right? So 0.5 is going to be the middle point of the curve. So I click on reparameterize, and now the point is right in the middle of the curve, and as I move it from 0, like now it's at 0, and as I move it from 0 to 1, that point is going to move. Okay, so now we can grab that point and connect it to the position, right? Like that. So now we have a camera path. We have the ability to draw in 3D any kind of camera path as long as it's a single curve. And we can, as we're moving the slider from 0 to 1, we can move the camera. And I even think, yeah, they even have the camera kind of, drawn out. So that's kind of cool. That's all you need to actually do. There's also other options here, but I don't think you need FOV, field of view, tilt, F number, shutter speed, film sensitivity. I think if you don't give it these options, it's going to inherit the options from Rhino. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong about this one. So for the camera path here, we have a slider between 0 and 1. Seems familiar? That's because we already have a slider between 0 and 1. That's our main controller that controls all of the animations. So all I need to do is, instead of this slider that we did for the camera path, I will just connect the main controller, right? So as our whole animation plays out, the camera will move, right? From 0 until 1. Okay, that's all it is about camera, right? Then you can just do, if you just want to do a 360-degree video, right? You just kind of do a circle, right? Like that. And I'll be fancy about it. I'll just tilt the circle, I don't know. And instead of, you know, the twisty camera path, I'll just use a circle for it. Set one curve. There we go. The camera will rotate around. And let's actually increase the size. All right. Whew. So we have that done. Let's see how it's going to render. If it's going to render out from our viewport or from the camera, I have no idea. We'll see. It's rendering out from our viewport and not the camera, so that's bad. But it's not that bad, because I think if we were to now go to Grasshopper, and instead of pressing this button here in Rhino, if we go to Grasshopper, right-click on our brain of Vray, right-click on it and choose Render. Then it's going to, yes, then it is rendering out the, oh, but wait a minute, this changed. Now it's not rendering out the, sorry, I need to, 10 more seconds. They changed it. So now I need to think. Okay, my bad. Apparently we can't do this anymore. We need, if we do Vray animations in Grasshopper, we actually need to set up the scene inside of Grasshopper. That's fine, we can do that. That's no problem. Because what we will do is, first of all, we need to get the static objects inside of Grasshopper, right? So I will just select my concrete thing as a brep, reference it in, set one brep. This is, I don't like when things don't go smoothly. So we will do that, and we will use Vray geometry on it, and we will use not color swatch, sorry, we'll use material from project, connect it like so, and that is going to be concrete, right? And connect it like that. So that's done. And then we will deal with the lady. So I believe all of these are meshes, right? Yes, meshes. Ungroup, mesh, copy paste, mesh, copy paste, mesh. So we have 3 meshes, one for the helmet, one for the clothes, and one for the body. The body, there we go. Set one mesh, and it's kind of very repetitive and boring thing to do, but we need to do it either way. So Vray geometry, let me just copy it 2 times. Honestly, this is why I prefer Blender than Vray for animations, is because things change. With every update, it seems like things are changing quite a bit with, oops, that's the wrong one, my bad. Things are changing quite a bit with Vray, so I really don't like that. So that's going to be, which one is it? The top one is the helmet. Okay, so that's the helmet. Copy paste. That's gonna be the skin probably, or no, it's going to be the clothes. the clothes, and the last one is going to be the skin. Skin. Okay, and then we just connect. Come on. Connect. 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 Okay. That's an additional thing that we had to do to render this thing out. Oh, of course, those small, I forget it. Don't have time, I will just delete them. Didn't like them either way. Okay, let's see again. Render. Please render properly. Okay, it is rendering properly, but the camera is too close right now. So we don't see much. So I will increase the size of my camera path. Just scale it up basically. Like that. Like that. Maybe I shouldn't rotate it that much. Yeah, that's good. And here I will actually come back to my camera settings, and where it says field of view, I will increase the field of view to be a higher like angle. I should stop rendering so that you can see a not so laggy image. So higher angle. What kind of angle? Let's try 60 degrees for field of view. Try rendering again. At this point, it's just going to be a bunch of testing, right? Yeah, 60 degrees seems to be okay. Maybe we can do less. There we go. That seems fine. And now the last thing is lights that we have created. They are not transferring from Rhino into Vray, so we need to create lights. And honestly, what we can do is, well, first of all, let's get rid of the lights from here. That's whatever. And instead, let's just go for where is it? Lighting, Vray rig simple. So it's kind of already done for us, the light rig, and we can just kind of connect it like so. Light rig connects to light rig, and then here we can choose to have gradient on or off and so on. So let me turn on the controls and kind of just guide you through them real quick. So gradient is off, reflection of environment is off, global illumination, meaning illumination coming from other sources, is off. Global illumination environment color is black. I'm basically turning it completely off, right? Light is on, light color is white, and then we can change the light angle or light intensity. This is disgusting. I don't want it. So light is off as well. Because that's a very, you don't have a lot of control over it, so it's not great. Instead of this light rig, so with this light rig, I just changed the environment lighting, right? But here there's light option, right? Where I can create lights inside of Vray. So if I go to lighting, I can just say Vray light rectangle, right? Like that. And I can create a rectangle here in Rhino, just like this. And I can say position, and target, and then size. Oh, I don't even need I don't even need a rectangle. I can just create a point. Oh, you can't hear me.
No, you freezed for like a minute or so.
Fuck. How do we do this? Wait,
The
I'm
rectangular line.
sorry?
I think we just missed the rectangular line that you did.
Just this guy here.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Let me. God damn it, the freaking internet is disconnecting, I think. Let me try. Okay, one more try. Let's do one more try. If I start freezing again, then I will finish up the tutorial alone. And then we'll upload it on YouTube and you'll see the final result on YouTube. So let's just continue and we'll see how it works. So basically with this simple light rig, I turned off all of the inputs, right? And I turned them off because I don't want to have any gradients. I don't want to deal with anything from there, from the environment. I just want those rectangular lights to shine, right? So if I render this out now, you know, let me stop the render. It's completely black, right? So it's only the material that's shining light. So I need to re-implement the lights within Grasshopper. And we can do that quite easily. This is actually turning out to be a full-on Grasshopper rendering tutorial, which is okay, I guess. So to re-implement the lights, I will go to lighting and I'll choose Vray light rectangle here, like so. And basically it asks me for position and target. We know about the target, right? It's going to be exactly this time I'm going to move the node next to it. It's going to be the center point. We're shining light as well to the center point. Just like that, that's our target. But for the position, I want to have, just to save time, I want to have, let's say, two positions, right? So I'll be creating two light sources, here and here, like these two guys here. So those are just 2 points that I create in Rhino, and I will reference them in as point, or as, you know, into the point node as set multiple points. So these two guys get referenced in, and that's going to be my position for the rectangular lights. The problem with them is that they're very, very small. That's because their size is only 2 millimeters or 2 centimeters. We want them bigger. So we want them to be like 10 meters big. So I'll just say, I think 1,000 is 10 meters, right? Yeah. Something like that. So we have these 2 points here that are now controlling the position of our light sources. As I move the points in Rhino, the light sources move together with them. I can also change the intensity of them. Since I have 2 of them, I can give it 2 different intensities, and I can show you how. You just create a slider saying 100 and connect it, and then you create another slider saying 75 and connect it as well. You know, like that, holding down the shift key. And then for the color, you can use color swatch, for instance, and I will say that the first light, which has intensity of 100, is white, while the other one, which has the intensity of 75, is orange. Just slightly orange. Nothing too fancy. And that's it. Oh yeah, and invisible. We do want the lights not to show up. We just need them to shine light, but not the huge white rectangles. We don't want them to show up. So I'll just use a Boolean toggle and connect connect true to invisible, right? So that they are not showing up. That's it. We connect add light to the light here of the main node that we have. Right click, render, and that is that. Okay, So now we need to fix some settings of the camera, right? And that's going to be the last thing. Honestly, the only thing that we need to change with the camera to make it less, nuclear explosion, we need to, under camera options, where we have, what's physical exposure? When I enable the exposure value of number, shutter speed, I say it will be affect the image brightness. And when disabled, they won't, I guess. Okay, so physical exposure, I will turn it on. And then we have three settings. F number, shutter speed, film sensitivity. So we don't care about film sensitivity, that's whatever. We don't care about the F number, we care about the shutter speed. The larger the value, the darker the image is going to get. The smaller the value, the brighter the image, because it's basically how fast does the shutter blink when you take a picture, right? So shutter speed here, it's 1 to 100 of a second, so I will try 500, 1 to 500. And we try rendering again. This is quite old school way of doing it though. Weird that it doesn't have a exposure value setting. But yeah, one with 1 to 500 exposure, shutter speed seems to be doing the trick quite well. All right, so we have that done. Last thing, and then we will end, or rather we will end the Zoom meeting and I'll flesh out the tutorial. It's actually animating it and saving every frame, just like we did with Rhino. So to do that, we need to set up an output image. That's the first thing. Or rather, no, that's the last thing. Let's do it last. First of all, we need a timeline, right? So there is this thing called a timeline, which we need to have for this to work, and it's under render, render subtab. It's called Vray timeline. So what this thing does, it's basically a slider, right? Going through frames in this case. And here, let me just drag it down a bit. It has frame count. It has from where do we start rendering and where do we end rendering. So frame count, I will say, yeah, let's do those 10 seconds, right? So again, 300 frames. 300 frames. Range start, it does start with frame 0. Range end, it should end at frame 300. So I can just straight up connect 300 to here. And it's freaking out. Come on, just show me. Animation, because it says animation end frame must be less or equal to the final frame. Why it's doing that? It's because we start counting from 0 and we're counting 300 frames, meaning the last frame that we'll have is not going to be frame number 300, it's going to be frame number 299, which is obnoxious, but we need to do it this way. Come on, 299, enter. And now it's not going to freak out anymore, right? That counting from 0, I really dislike it, but what can you do? So we have this set up, and now we have all of the frames here, right? So this is our new master slider, right? It's we will not be using that old one anymore. This one, main controller. Rather, we'll be using this new and improved master slider, right? So here, to get the values between 0 and 1, because we're working with values between 0 and 1, here the output that we care about is called current fraction, right? If I grab my panel here and put it here like that, connect it, and I move the slider, you can see that it increases between 0 and 1, right? So current fraction is our new slider, and that is precisely why I created this node rather than connecting straight from this slider to every node, because then I would need to kind of replace everything. And here, now I can just do this. That's it. Don't need this anymore. That's our new master slider. Okay. And one last thing to make this work is the timeline, where we need to, let me just drag this slider next to our main node here. We have this timeline output here, we have timeline input here, we connect it like so. That's it. Now, as we will run the, and I'll just drag it back to here. Now, as we run our animation or our render, it's going to render out the animation because the timeline is connected. Then we have render elements. Do I care about render elements? Is there at least, there's not even anything here that I can work with. Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, it asks us to give it render elements, but there are no render elements. I guess you can get one from here, but that's whatever. Who cares? Okay. So now to set up for the final animation, you keep the engine as CPU, but you change the mode to production rather than interactive, right? So production means it's kind of final, right? You change the sampler to, you don't change the sampler, sorry, you keep it as progressive. I would keep the quality as medium, that's whatever. Output image, then you describe the output image. So I'll double click on this orange thing here, and I will just create a new folder real quick on my desktop. I'll call it Vray image sequence, like that. And I'll give my image a name, so I'll just call it test name. And keep in mind that if you have the format of the image set to be as a PNG, it's going to not give you the background. The background is going to be transparent. If you use JPEG, the background is going to be there, and it's going to be, in this case, black, right? So it depends on what you need. Usually I always just go for JPEG, and you know, if I need to change the background, I just change it here. Okay, so we have that. I hit save. Testname.jpg is going to be my output image, and then I can change the output resolution as well. So for the output resolution, we need two values, so that's going to be two sliders. One slider is going to be the width, oh my god, okay. When did I disconnect? At which point did I disconnect? Am I disconnecting still? Fuck. Add the JPEG, huh? We are so close to finishing. So close. Let me disconnect from like all of my phones and so on, and just hope that it's gonna work. I'll need to figure something out with the freaking router. We'll see. Am I live? Do you hear me? Hello? Is this thing on?
You're late now.
Okay. Okay, let's finish up. Share the screen. Screen 2, share. So you should be seeing the screen. Fucking fun. So I disconnected in here, right? Around here. Testname.jpg. Where I kind of specify that instead of PNG, we need to use JPEG if we want to keep the background. At least I hope so. Okay, so what did I do next? Oh, right, the resolution. That's the last thing before we end. So the resolution is 2 numbers, meaning 2 sliders. One slider is going to be the width, and the other one is height. So if you want full HD resolution, you know, the regular one is 1920 connect by 1080 shift connect shift connect. There we go. So that's that. Cool. Cool. I'm just now currently like always checking if I'm if I'm disconnected or not. And that's it. Then if you right click and you can choose to either render or render animation, right? You just choose to render the animation. Click. Your Grasshopper is going to get this white outline around it. And it's going to start rendering every frame, like frame after frame after frame. I will just let it render for a bit, just to see. There we go. Come on. You can see with Grasshopper, it's with Vray, it's going to be much longer to render out an animation than it is with raw Rhino. Yeah, that's good enough. Let me stop. And it's basically, as it's rendering, it's going to start giving you like text, displaying text here, how many frames are done, how many are left, and the estimated time left. And it's usually like, for something like this, it's a few hours to render out. That is about it. You can add, by the way, when you're doing the rendering thing, right? You can also mess around with these settings here, these 2 settings here, the bloom and glare effects and also exposure effects. Those are located in your render window. Those are located on the bottom left. We're on the bottom left where you have these tools. The one that's most on the left is your exposure settings and so on, and the one that's on the right is your like glare and so on settings. So for instance, I can mess around with this a bit more. For instance, I want the sphere to be a little bit more blurry. I can turn on the bloom effect on it, right? And then it's, you know, nice and shiny and a little bit more, you know, has a little bit more pizzazz to it. And then same thing with exposure controls. Let's say I want to decrease the exposure a bit, but increase the contrast. I can do that. I can change the white balance to be a little bit colder or warmer or colder, right? I can apply a LUT. We just mess around with these, right? Mess around with these and you'll see the different things that you can do. For LUTs, you would need to download them, actually. Not Vray doesn't come with LUTs, but basically what LUTs are, it's color lookup tables, right? So you can apply a color lookup table that is going to be whatchamacallit, that's going to be inherited from some sort of an existing camera or some sort of existing movie and so on. So it color grades your project automatically according to some sort of a LUT, which is again a color lookup table, LUT. And there's of course always color balance. For me, I always prefer to have like, well, definitely not this, but warmer highlights. Much warmer highlights though. Why doesn't this work? Come on, just be warmer. Warmer highlights, colder shadows, maybe warmer midtones as well. Stuff like that. This is way too intense right now, of course, but you get the idea. Anyway, so you can mess around with these settings and get the style that you want. Before we finish, and yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Sorry for this being a little bit scattered. It's I will fix the internet and the settings later on, and like for the next video or meeting, Zoom meeting, and we will do next time we'll do some Blender tutorials. So let me just stop the recording here.